Hello people, in this video we are going to create a Monorepo project with Tailwind CSS and Storybook setup. I will be creating a custom common configuration for Tailwind CSS to use throughout all of our projects inside the Monorepo. So let's get started. So I'm in the official documentation of Turborepo. When creating a Monorepo project with Storybook, you have either of the two options. Either you can use their built-in template using this command, or you can set up Storybook inside an existing Monorepo project. You can do so by creating a new folder under apps, navigating to that folder, and initiating the Storybook there. So we are going to go with the first option. Let's copy this command and let's head over to the terminal. So I'm in my terminal. I'll just paste the command, press enter. I will do / the project name that I want. Press enter. You can choose any of the below. I'll choose npm. And this will take a while to load. The project setup is now successful. Let us navigate to the project and open the project in VS Code. You can see we have the project setup here. Under apps, if we go to the docs, we have the Storybook setup done here, and we also have a demo component button inside it. So let me just simply rename this project. I'll name it to design system. And also update the name here in the package name. And we're all set. Let's now run the command npm install. This will install all of the dependencies in the project. Let's wait for some time. Now let's hit npm run dev. As you can see, the Storybook is now running on port 6006, and here we have the demo button component. With that, our Storybook project is successfully set up under design system. Our next step is to set up the common Tailwind CSS configuration. But before that, we are going to need one more project under apps to verify whether the common Tailwind CSS configuration is being applied to all the projects or not. So let us first create a simple Next.js application under apps folder. So I'm going to navigate to the apps folder now, cd apps, and I'm going to create a new project folder here, mkdir portal. I'm going to navigate to portal, and let's create a simple Next.js application with command npx create next app @latest space dot. I'm going to use TypeScript, not going to use ESLint, and we are not going to install Tailwind CSS in the portal project because we are going to create a common project under the packages folder here, just like TypeScript config and ESLint config, so that we can reuse this project in all of our other projects. So therefore, we don't need to individually install Tailwind CSS into our other projects. So I'm going to choose no here, and rest of them I'll leave to default. And our project setup for portal is now done. So I'm in the home page of our portal project, and let us clean up some code here. I'm going to remove this main section here, and I'm going to replace it with just a simple button with some demo class name of Tailwind. So I'm going to use bg slate 500 as the background, text slate 800 for the text, and text bold, maybe semi bold. and a padding of 3. And let's say click me. So our home page is now set up. Now let us clean the other files. So I don't need the page.modules.css, so I'm going to delete this one. And let us remove all the code from globals.css as well. Let us now run the project. I'm going to head over to the main folder. You can also choose to run the individual portal project. So let's hit npm run dev. And our portal project should be set up at localhost 3000. So let's navigate to localhost colon 3000. You can see here the Tailwind classes are not yet applied. So that's what we'll verify in the upcoming Tailwind configuration. So as part of our next step, now let us create a new folder under the packages, which is going to be an simple npm project. So let me navigate to packages here. And let me create a new folder, Tailwind config. Navigate to Tailwind config. And I will hit npm init space -y. So you can see we have a package.json here. Here is where now we are going to install our Tailwind CSS dependencies. So let us now install npm install -d. Let us install autoprefixer, Tailwind CSS and postcss. So before going further, let me explain what is autoprefixer and postcss. So these two are basically plugins that enable browser compatibility to your CSS code, so that your custom styling should be applied to all of the browsers. So some of the vendor prefixes that are applied at the final CSS code are -webkit, -moz, -ms. So with that, let us go ahead and install these dependencies. We'll hit enter. And you can see the dependencies are installed as part of dev dependencies. So let us now set up the tailwind.config file. So let me first head over to the Tailwind CSS installation documentation. The first step we have completed. We have installed Tailwind CSS. Now we need to initiate the Tailwind CSS. So I'll copy the command, head over to the terminal and paste it under my Tailwind config project. Hit enter. And you can see a tailwind.config.js file is created. To avoid build issues or import issues, we must import it as a common JS file. So the extension should be CJS. So in the tailwind.config file, let us now understand what the content array is. So let us head over to the documentation. You can see the content array here is an array of path. So here we have /src/regex, which will match all of the paths inside all of the files inside the src folder. And here in the curly braces, you have a list of extensions that you want to allow. So this path is the path where your Tailwind CSS classes are being used. Understand that any mistake in this path will result in the Tailwind classes not being applied. So let us head over back to our project. For now, I'm going to remove this content array from the common Tailwind config. I will come to that in a bit as to why I have removed and where I'm going to add it back. Now let us go to the package.json. First of all, let us update the package name to repo/config. And let us export our tailwind.config file. So I'll add exports /tailwind config and the path to my Tailwind config here. So I'm in the Tailwind config project. So I'll do /tailwind.config.cjs. Our Tailwind file is now set up. Let us move ahead and add a postcss config file. So I'll simply create a new file, postcss.config, and this as well is going to be a CJS file. So I'm going to post some code here in the postcss config. I want you to copy it as it is. This sets up our postcss config file as well. So let us export this file as well. ./postcss.config ./postcss.config.cjs. So let us head over back to the documentation. We also need to create a CSS file and add this code there. So let us create a file called global.css and paste the code here. And similarly, we are also going to export this file as well. So globals.css. So our common configuration is now set up. Now let's add all the paths to all of our projects here. So let us go to the UI folder. Let us add a postcss.config file here. Module.exports require. I'm going to import the postcss config file here. Similarly, let us add the tailwind.config file. We go to the other, copy. Let me paste the first line. Now let us import the config here as well. And module.exports. Let us spread the config here. And now let us add the paths to our UI folder. So all of my components are going to be inside the src, but they can be inside multiple folders. So to match that, we need to have a regex. So let us match ./src/***.tsx. So let us go over and now add the configuration for other projects as well. So in the portal project, before adding the configuration files, let us first go to package.json and add the dependency for our config project. So @repo/config and a star. Let us now add the postcss file here at the root level of my project. Module.exports, and let me import it from @repo/config/postcss config. Okay. Similarly, let us add the tailwind css file, tailwind.config.cjs. We paste the first line. Let me import the config, tailwind config, module.exports. Let us spread the config here and let us add the content. So here we are going to add two paths. The first one is to match all the folders, all the components inside src, and the second one is for the UI folder in the packages. So let me add the first one, ./src slash double asterisk slash asterisk slash dot tsx. The second one, packages slash UI slash s. So the paths are now set up. Let us go ahead to our second important step. Let us go to layout.tsx, and here we need to import the globals.css file from the Tailwind config. So I'll remove this globals here and I will import it from @repo/config/globals. I no longer need the globals.css file. I'm going to delete this one. So our setup is now done, and when I run the project, these classes should be applied. Let us open the terminal and hit npm run dev. So our portal is running on localhost 3000. Let's head over. You can see we have an error, cannot find module @repo/config/postcss.config. Actually, we have missed one step, that is npm install after adding the dependency here. So let us go ahead and hit npm install first. So you can see we have added one package. Let us hit npm run dev once again. You can see the classes are still not applied here. So let us go back to our code. This is mainly due to the globals.css import here. We should not be directly importing the CSS file. Let us instead do one thing. Let us create a styles.tsx under tailwind config, and it will only contain a simple globals.css import. Let us also export /styles.tsx. Let us update the import in layout config/styles. Let us check if the classes are now applied. We'll go back to Chrome. Let us go back to localhost 3000. You can see the classes are still not applied. So let me head over to the project. We have a warning here because the curly braces are not required in case of a single file. In case you have multiple files such as JSX and TSX, you can add the curly braces. But if we have a single file, we don't need the curly braces here. So I'm going to remove this. Let me save it again. And let me hit refresh. You can see the classes are now applied. So this sets up our Tailwind for the portal project. Let us now finally set the Tailwind CSS for our design system. So I'm in the button.stories.tsx file here. Let me first remove the style object from here. Now let me go to the UI folder, the button.tsx, and let me add some custom Tailwind classes here. BG blue 500, text semi-bold, and a padding of 3 again. So now let us set up the postcss and the Tailwind config file. But before that, let me add the dependency for our config here as well. I'll go to the dependencies, add @repo/config and an asterisk here. So let us now set up the postcss file first. postcss.config.js. module.exports require @repo/config/postcss config. Let us also add the Tailwind CSS here. Tailwind.config.js. So the first path is going to be towards the stories folder, and the next one, as always, is going to be towards the packages. So let me add the path to stories first. Double asterisk .tsx. Let us also add ts here. And let me add packages as well. UI double asterisk we don't need the curly braces. So our Tailwind classes should be applied now. Let me go over to the storybook. You can see the classes are yet not applied. This is because we have not yet imported our styles file from the common Tailwind config. So let us now set up the preview.ts file inside the .storybook folder. So let me create a new file here called preview.ts. And let me add some code here. So I'm going to say const preview, give it a type as preview, equal to parameters options as empty, and let me export it. Let me import the preview type here. And now let me also import our styles file from the repo. Let us now run the project again. But before that, let us hit npm install, since we have added a dependency earlier. Let us hit npm run dev. And you can see the classes are now applied in the storybook as well. But the font is not semi-bold. Let us cross check. Let me head over to button.tsx. It should be font semi-bold. Yeah, it is applied. So that's it for this video. I will be adding a GitHub link in the description for your reference. Meanwhile, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, guys. Thank you so much. Bye.